This piece is built around a simple idea. Performance is created before execution. Many leaders are working harder than ever right now, yet momentum feels heavier than it should. This is not a failure of leadership or commitment, it's a signal that the conditions performance depends on have shifted. In this piece, I'm not offering a new system or a how to. I'm naming where performance actually comes from in a never normal environment and why so many capable teams feel drag despite doing the right things. If execution feels heavier than it used to, this will help you see why and where to look first. Performance is created before execution. Performance doesn't magically kick in when the work starts. It's created earlier in the conditions that turn effort into sustainable momentum. Most organizations still operate as if the opposite were true. They treat performance as something leaders activate at the start of the day or the start of a project. When there's pressure on results, leadership attention moves downstream into execution, delivery, and coordination. There's more urgency, more oversight, more direct intervention when work starts to wobble. It's because this model worked for a long time, especially in environments where growth was steadier, signals were clearer, and pushing harder reliably produced results. That assumption hasn't disappeared, but the environment that supported it has. Performance doesn't come from effort or optimization anymore. In a never normal world, it comes from restoring operating alignment, reducing friction, and rejuvenating leadership input. Leaders face three choices in 2026. Hold the company and the team together until the assumption is right again. Spend more time in execution mode, or rethink performance in a never normal environment. Now, most leaders say they want the third, but many feel trapped in the second. Many leaders intuitively understand that performance depends on the right conditions. Yet, under constant pressure, they find themselves managing execution reactively as those conditions erode. They know the rhythm and focus of their decisions and priorities matter. They know clarity about what matters now, what good looks like, and what can wait also matters. They know trust, focus, and collaboration shape whether teams can sustain performance. They know that none of this is theoretical. It feels obvious and mandatory when there's space to think about it. But in a never normal environment, that time and space keeps collapsing. Urgency crowds out upstream leadership work on priority setting, clarity, and protecting the working conditions needed for success. Fires override planning. Leadership attention gets pulled again and again toward keeping work moving rather than shaping how performance is created. The tension felt daily isn't between knowing and ignorance of the role of leadership. It's between knowing and doing in pressurized conditions. Leaders don't abandon the conditions that matter. They're forced to trade protecting them for reacting to what's immediately in front of them. This tension is driven by a long held belief that governs how performance is managed. That performance is primarily a function of effort. If results fall off, effort should increase. If momentum slows, urgency should rise. If execution wavers, leaders should lean in harder. This belief isn't naive, it's historical. And it worked. In more predictable environments with steadier results, clearer priorities, and predictable operating environments, those were the days. Extra effort often did compound. Decisions stood up. Progress was made and results didn't need constant attention. It's a romantic view of the past. But the reality is that effort has always been necessary. For a long time, it was often enough. But here's the trap hidden in the belief that performance is primarily a function of effort. The belief assumes that effort compensates for weak, unstable conditions, that leaders can absorb increasing amounts of strain, and that systems will stabilize when the operating conditions do. So when leaders push harder, they're not avoiding their responsibilities, they are actually taking on more. So what's changed isn't the value of effort, it's the reliable presence of the conditions that effort depends on to be truly successful. These conditions are not abstract. They are the things that leaders fight hardest to protect, but lose first under pressure. You see them in how decisions get made, in how clearly teams understand customer needs, in whether communication stays open and authentic when the pressure is on, and whether talent is deployed well or slowly wasted through friction. When the conditions for best effort are not right, leaders compensate. They step in more often. They clarify repeatedly. They hold teams, projects, and plans together through their presence and their urgency. Performance continues, but it depends on their constant intervention to sustain it. When the conditions are right, something else happens. Work moves smoothly and effectively. Decision quality improves and is revisited less often. Trust survives the tension and the pressure. Collaboration reduces friction and barriers. These might be soft factors, but they are not soft responsibilities. There is a felt difference when the conditions are right. Teams and the company feel momentum because the environment supports it instead of draining it. The difference shows up in results that leadership, boards, and investors notice. Performance isn't created in the moment before execution. Performance creation begins in the culture, the clarity, and the collaboration that leaders create long before execution ever begins. This is where leadership meaningfully shifts from performance improvement to performance creation. Driving outcomes focuses leadership attention downstream on execution, delivery, and results. It's important, but it's exhausting and depleting of people, time, and resources. Designing conditions moves leadership attention upstream to creating the environment required for reliable and sustainable performance. This isn't a reduction in leadership responsibility, it's an expansion of it because time is spent on areas of highest return. Leaders are still accountable for outcomes, but the work that makes those outcomes repeatable happens earlier in how priorities are set, in how decisions get made, and in how collaboration is cultivated. In a never normal environment, performance doesn't fail because leaders stop caring. It falters because the conditions that once supported effort have become harder to sustain in the moment we're in now. Reframing leadership this way doesn't remove the need for urgency in this environment. It restores the leadership intention required to succeed in this environment. When conditions are designed and protected, performance changes in ways leaders recognize immediately. Teams don't need constant intervention to stay aligned. Decisions hold longer. Work doesn't have to be restarted as often. Leaders spend less time propping things up and more time shaping what happens next. Nothing about the work becomes easy, but effort becomes sustainable. And this is what compounding performance looks like in practice. It's not explosive growth or constant acceleration, but results are less dependent on urgency and far more sustainable. Leadership in the never normal era is responsive and outcome focused. And it now includes the responsibility of designing the conditions where performance and results can compound.